Maya Carter loved quiet places. The kind of places where the world felt far away and the only sounds were wind moving through trees and gravel crunching under your boots. That's why she chose the Black Ridge Trail for her weekend hike. The trail was known for long, peaceful routes, tall pines, and almost no visitors this time of year. But before Maya even reached the entrance, something about the place already felt wrong. At the small wooden trail sign, a forest ranger stood leaning against his truck. Ranger Luke Harlow watched Maya step out of her car and adjust her backpack. "You heading up the main loop?" he asked. Maya smiled politely. "Yeah, just a short hike. I'll be back before dark." Luke didn't return the smile. His eyes shifted toward the trees behind the sign, where the forest grew thick and dark even under the afternoon sun. "Stick to the marked trail," he said firmly. "Don't take any side paths, especially the old ones." Maya frowned slightly. "Old ones?" "There are a few abandoned trails back there," Luke replied. "They're not on the map anymore for a reason." Maya nodded, though the warning sounded more dramatic than necessary. She'd hiked plenty of forests before. Getting lost wasn't exactly on her to-do list. After signing the small visitor log, she stepped onto the trail. The forest swallowed the sound of the road almost instantly. Tall pines stretched high above her, their branches weaving together like a ceiling. The deeper she walked, the quieter everything became. Even the birds seemed strangely absent. For the first hour, the hike was perfect. Cool air, soft sunlight, and the steady rhythm of her boots against dirt. Then she noticed something odd. The trail markers, the small red paint marks on trees, started appearing less frequently. Maya slowed down. She checked her map. According to it, the path ahead should curve left toward a small stream, but instead, another narrow path branched off to the right. It looked older, thinner, like it hadn't been used in years. She hesitated. Then she looked back. The main trail behind her seemed longer than she remembered. Quiet, empty, and somehow darker. Curious, Maya stepped onto the smaller path. Within minutes, the forest changed. The trees grew closer together. The air felt colder, and the ground beneath her boots was covered with old leaves that muffled every step. Then she heard it. A second set of footsteps, soft, slow, somewhere behind her. Maya stopped walking. The forest fell silent. For a moment, the only sound she could hear was her own breathing and the faint rustle of leaves shifting in the wind. She slowly turned her head, looking back down the narrow path she had just come from. Nothing. Just the thin trail disappearing between tall trees and tangled branches. She stood still for several seconds, listening carefully. Maybe it was just an animal, she thought, a deer, or maybe a squirrel moving through the leaves. Trying to calm herself, Maya let out a small breath and continued walking. Crunch. Her boot pressed into the dry leaves again. 2 seconds later, crunch. The same sound echoed behind her. Maya froze. Her chest tightened as she slowly turned around again. This time, she stared harder into the trees, her eyes scanning every shadow and branch. "Hello?" she called. Her voice sounded small in the forest. No answer. Just the slow creaking of trees swaying high above. Maya pulled her phone out of her pocket and checked the screen. No signal. Of course. She turned back toward the path and began walking faster, trying to convince herself she was overreacting. The trail would reconnect with the main route soon. She just needed to keep moving. But the forest kept getting thicker. The trees were older here, their trunks twisted and covered with dark moss. The sunlight barely reached the ground anymore. Then Maya saw something that made her stomach drop. Footprints, right in the middle of the path ahead. They looked fresh, large impressions pressed deep into the soil, spaced far apart, like whatever made them had taken long, slow strides. But they weren't shaped like normal footprints. They were longer, almost stretched, like something with a human shape, but wrong proportions. Maya crouched slightly, staring at them. What the hell? The prints continued down the trail for several meters before fading into the leaves. And that's when she noticed something worse. They weren't leading away from her. They were coming toward her. Her heartbeat quickened. Slowly, Maya stood up and turned around again. The path behind her was still empty, but now the forest felt different. Heavier, like something was watching her. Then, crunch. A loud step snapped from somewhere just beyond the trees, not on the trail. Inside the forest, moving. Maya's body went cold, because whatever had made that sound was tall enough to push branches aside several feet above the ground, and it was getting closer. Maya didn't think anymore. She ran. Dry leaves exploded under her boots as she rushed down the narrow trail, branches scraping her arms while her backpack bounced against her shoulders. Her breath came fast and sharp, turning into white mist in the suddenly colder air. Behind her, crunch. Another step. Slow, heavy, not running, just following. Maya's heart pounded harder. She didn't dare look back. Something deep in her instincts told her that if she saw it, if she truly looked at whatever was moving through those trees, she might freeze completely. And stopping was the one thing she could not afford. The trail twisted sharply ahead. Maya almost slipped as she turned, grabbing a tree trunk to steady herself. Her lungs burned now. Just get back to the main trail, she whispered to herself. But the path didn't look familiar anymore. The trees were too dense, the ground too uneven, the air too quiet. Then she saw it. A small wooden sign nailed crookedly to a tree. The wood was gray and cracked with age, nearly hidden by moss. Maya slowed just enough to read the faded letters carved into it. Old Service Trail. Closed, her stomach twisted. This had to be one of the abandoned trails the ranger warned about. Great, she muttered under her breath. Another branch snapped behind her, closer this time. Maya couldn't help herself. She turned. At first, she saw nothing. Then something shifted between two tall pines about 30 yards away. A shape. Tall, unnaturally tall. It stood half hidden in the shadows of the trees. The figure was thin, far too thin for its height, and its arms seemed long enough to almost touch the ground. For a second, Maya's brain tried to understand what she was seeing. Maybe it was just a person, a very tall person. But the way it moved shattered that thought instantly. The thing took one slow step forward. Its legs bent the wrong way, not backwards like an animal, but wrong. Too many joints. And its head tilted slightly like it was studying her. Maya felt every muscle in her body lock with fear. The figure stepped fully onto the trail, and even from that distance, she could see one horrifying detail. Its face wasn't a face at all, just a pale, smooth surface, no eyes, no mouth, nothing. For one frozen second, neither of them moved. Then the creature took another step, closer, and Maya realized something that made the fear even worse. It wasn't chasing her. It didn't need to, because somehow it already knew exactly where she was going. Maya forced her legs to move again. She ran harder than she ever had before, branches slapping against her jacket while the narrow trail twisted through the dark forest. Her breathing turned ragged, each gasp scraping her throat as panic pushed her forward. Behind her, the footsteps continued. Slow, heavy, unhurried. That was the worst part. Whatever was following her didn't sound like it was trying to catch up. It walked with a calm, steady rhythm, like it already knew escape wasn't possible. The trail suddenly sloped downward, and Maya stumbled onto a small clearing she didn't remember seeing on the map. In the center stood an old wooden structure, a ranger station, or what used to be one. The roof sagged, windows shattered, and the door hung slightly open. Moss covered most of the walls as if the forest had been slowly reclaiming it for years. Maya rushed toward it without thinking. Inside, the air smelled damp and stale. Dust covered the floor and broken shelves leaned against the walls. She quickly pushed the door shut behind her and slid a rusted metal chair under the handle. Her hands trembled as she backed away from the door. The silence inside the cabin felt suffocating. Then, crunch. The footsteps stopped outside, right in front of the door. Maya held her breath. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then the wooden porch creaked slowly under a shifting weight. Something tall moved past the dirty window. Maya pressed herself against the far wall, barely daring to breathe. A shadow stretched across the dusty floorboards. Long, thin, unnatural. The door handle twitched once. The chair rattled softly against the wood. Maya felt tears building in her eyes as fear wrapped around her chest like a vice. Then something strange happened. The handle stopped moving. The shadow outside tilted slightly, as if the thing was listening, and slowly. The footsteps moved away. One step, then another, until the forest went quiet again. Minutes passed, maybe longer. Maya didn't move until the faint orange glow of sunrise began slipping through the broken windows. With shaking hands, she pushed the chair aside and carefully opened the door. The forest outside looked normal again, calm, empty. Maya stepped onto the trail and walked until she finally reached the main path hours later, where a search team eventually found her. She told them everything: the trail, the footprints, the tall, faceless thing in the trees. Most of them assumed she was in shock, but one person didn't: Ranger Luke Harlow. When Maya finished her story, the ranger stood quietly for a long moment before looking toward the deep forest behind the trailhead. Then he said something that made Maya's blood run cold. "You're lucky." She frowned weakly. "Lucky?" Luke nodded slowly. "Most people who take that trail," he paused, "never make it back out."